All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Wistersill, Commissioner of the Big Sky. It's so great to have you all with us today and our distinguished panelists here talking about name, image, and likeness. And really appreciate our panelists. We'll get to them in a second. I'll introduce them and then we'll be off and running with some guidance and pathways for all of you. But I think first of all, the question is, why are we here? And what's the importance of this, right? So I think all of you know by now, the name, image, and likeness has been allowed by the NCAA per legislation that student athletes can now monetize opportunities for them. That is brand new. It's allowable for the first time ever within the NCAA. And it's a great thing for everyone. It's a great thing for the student athletes. It's great for local businesses. It ends up being great for the schools because all of you are such great ambassadors for your universities that it's another kind of add-in to being a student athlete. So we're really excited to take a leadership role in this as a conference. We feel we're one of the few conferences that is doing intentional programming for our student athletes and trying to help them along their journey. And our panelists are going to help you with that tonight. You know, your schools, their compliance staffs, administrators, coaches. This is like a brand new discovery to everyone. We don't know where this is going to go. But we do have to have some guidelines. We have to have some understanding about what we're doing. And we're hopeful that all of you are excited about those opportunities. But we want you to figure out a way to do it safely. We want you to figure out a way to do it intelligently. We also want you to financially make good decisions. Not only right now, but for your future. And we know our responsibilities as member institutions and as the conference office is to help you on your journey. You know, I used to say when I was an AD, we want you to come in as a young man or a young woman and leave as a man or a woman different than when you came. And how can we be helpful in that? Well, this is a part of that process right here. And like I said, this is uncharted territory, but we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So what kind of the ground rules in this is, you know, we are going to have a Q&A through the chat there. So we want you to, if something pops up and you have a question, drop it in there in the Q&A and we'll get to it. Don't wait till the end because you might forget it. But Ty is on here from our office to try to help manage that and will help me with questions that seem pertinent. But we're just going to make this a good conversation. So with that, let's get rolling. I'm going to introduce our panelists. I'm going to give you a quick bio on them, and then we're going to jump in right away. So first, we have Jean Mcnulty King. Hi, Jean. Wave there. There we go. Jean is the president and CEO of 2X. It's a full-service sports agency specializing in the representation of female athletes. She played basketball at Montana, so she's a Big Sky graduate, and then she played professional hoops, and she represents some of the top athletes of the world. Thank you for your time today, Jean.
You bet. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Next, we have Nico Harrison. Hello, Nico.
Hey, Tom.
Nico, we're excited to have him. He's the newly named GM and president of basketball ops for the Dallas Mavericks. He'll be busy 2 nights from tonight with the NBA draft. He played basketball at Montana State and was recently in 2015 inducted into the Montana State Athletics Hall of Fame. And he was an executive with Nike for over 20 years, so brings great experience. So thanks for being here, Nico.
My pleasure.
Next, we have Victoria Garrett. Victoria, former student athlete, volleyball player at USC. She's a TED Talk speaker, social media influencer, mental health advocate. She just founded The Hidden Opponent, an organization created to raise awareness for student athlete mental health. And all your administrators had the pleasure of Victoria being at our Big Sky meetings in Bozeman 2.5 years ago, I think. Victoria gave a great talk about student athlete mental health. She shared her journey and how we can all be helpful to all student athletes. So thanks for being with us, Victoria.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
All right. And then last but certainly not least, Mark Jordan. Mark is the manager of NIL strategy at Teamworks Influencer. As many of you know, we signed an agreement with the Big Sky with Influencer to help all of you and our schools work within name, image, and likeness and maximize all the opportunities. He's made a career in managing digital strategy in higher education, spent time at the University of Texas in Austin. No, we're not talking about your conference move here, Mark, so that's not going to be a topic. And then he's been here at Influencer for 8 months. So Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
All right. So, all right, let's jump into this. So over the last few months, this has changed really rapidly, right? So NIL. So let's first jump into what were kind of your first thoughts, right? Okay. So, wow, athletes can profit off their name, image, and likeness. So Gene, when you first kind of heard this, what was your thoughts about how this is going to change college athletics, and kind of what was bouncing around in your head then?
You know, I had mixed emotions on it, to be honest. I think back to when I played, and, you know, we have such a great fan support at Montana. We could have really used a lot of that. But then I also think there's some negatives in it, and it really needs to be used appropriately. But on some hand, you know, the bigger will get bigger, the bigger markets are going to have the bigger athletes. And even though it can't be used in recruiting, you know, it's going to be. But I think that it's awesome that the students, the athletes now can start to profit off of the NIL when before the institutions just got all that. So I think it'll be a good thing if it's done correctly. And I think this is a great venue to help that.
All right, great, thank you. I'm gonna come back to some of that in a little bit. So Nico, how about you? First heard NIL was gonna happen. What do you think?
I was a bit jealous because back in my day, I could have profited off it, but I was excited for the student athletes. You know, one of the things I think being a student athlete, you always kind of regret it is that you spend so much time between studying and practice that you couldn't get a job. And so if you don't have money coming in, you know, the scholarship barely pays for you to get food. So I just think it's really like the times are catching up. And so it's great for the student athletes.
Yeah, no doubt. Good stuff. Okay, Victoria, how about you? You're the most recent student athlete on the panel. So what are you thinking when you hear about all this?
I was absolutely thrilled for student athletes. As someone who does social media full time and has seen the benefits of it, to think that athletes can be doing that now is wonderful. And also, I felt like finally, you know, it's a basic human right for us to be able to monetize who we are as people. I mean, musicians on scholarships were able to have concerts and charge the people who bought tickets. People who were on academic scholarships could found companies based on who they are. And it's like, finally now the athlete can profit off of their name, image, and likeness. So I was thrilled.
Yep. All right, so take me back. You're a student athlete. Each of you have different experiences, the three of you. And had you, if you know, now you're in a position now where you have all this life experiences in that, what would you take back and say, "Wow, if I knew then what I know now, here's how I would kind of step into this realm. This is what I'm going to do." So Victoria, I'm going to start with you. What do you wish you'd have known?
I would have started creating, putting out content and building my brand sooner. I started a YouTube channel my junior year of college and started posting on Instagram seriously towards my second 2 years. Had I have known what it would have become, yes, I would go back. In freshman year, I would have been TikToking about our media day and, you know, posting vlogs about the freshman season. So I would have just started creating content sooner. And just so everyone knows, I'll probably be speaking more for those athletes who do want to build those personal brands and that online social media presence. So I think that would be what I wish I did, was get started sooner.
Do you feel like, Victoria, that the time commitment that a student athlete has, what's your suggestion of how do you balance that? I mean, I want to get great grades. I want to be great at my sport. I got my family. I got a boyfriend, girlfriend. And oh, by the way, now I got to devote hours to this. I mean, what are you thinking there?
I hear you. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I do think an important piece of this puzzle is there's now an added pressure, an added stress to athletes, right? Like, my teammates signed this brand deal with Lululemon and I haven't done anything yet. So I do think there's that's an added pressure and it's added stress. I will say, we have to remember that we have a choice. So if that doesn't serve you and it is overwhelming and your school and your sport is your priority, that's amazing. That's wonderful. If you are not getting playing time or you're coasting through school, now you have an opportunity that you didn't have. So I would just say, for anyone who's feeling overwhelmed, you have every right. It was hard enough to just be a student athlete, and now we have another pillar to think about. But I think the beautiful thing is we have the choice. And I'd rather athletes have the choice than be where we were a year ago, which was not have an option.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So Nico, what do you wish you'd have known back then that you know now?
Well, I think I wish we would have had the internet and Instagram, but since we didn't, no, in all seriousness, I think the biggest thing is that for student athletes, I think the advice I would give them is really be a part of the community, especially when you look at the Big Sky schools. Most of them are in small communities. So I think it's like, be a student, be an athlete, be part of those, but also the community around. I think it's important that you're actually a part of the community while you're there. And then also you got to perform. You know, chances are, if you're not performing, you're probably not going to get a bunch of deals. So I think you got to take care of whatever field of play you're in. You got to take care of business there, and then also in the classroom, so that you're eligible. So I think you got to do that, and that's all part of being part of the community. And I think if you do that, then that's going to open up opportunities for you. I think if you don't do those things, then opportunities aren't going to come your way.
Yeah, great point. Great point. So Gene, you had talked in your opening kind of comment about the good and bad things that could happen with NIL. So as you put your life experience and with your agency and promoting athletes like you do, how do you address the, I wish I would have known this had I been a student athlete? What are your thoughts there?
Well, like Nico said, it made me laugh when Victoria was talking about building her brand and the internet and TikTok. I'm like, we didn't even have, did we have cell phones? We're really aging ourselves. This isn't fair. But yeah, so for me, I would have just been more out in the community trying to, you know, I don't know if anyone from Missoula is listening, Hoagieville. I think I ate at Hoagieville every single day. I wouldn't have had to pay for those maybe, and that would have made a big difference. But no, I think to echo what everyone has said, you know, you have to be that student athlete first. You have to be careful what you do socially and on your profile and such, because that's the first place people are going to look to see who you are. And I just think be careful with that and take care of what you're there for. And then the good from the NIL will come, which should follow.
Right. Okay.
Tom,
So Mark, I'm going to turn to you now. Kind of the thought of, you've listened to the three of them kind of talk about this big wide world. And so what have you guys at Influencer kind of learned about so far about student athletes and the marketplace, and kind of in a big picture point there? What how can you kind of put a spin on some of that's certainly pertinent to the student athletes today?
Well, as we shift towards social media and branding, think about the biggest issue I think that we deal with with athletes on a daily basis is posting. I mean, there are a lot of athletes out there that just don't have access to content, or just aren't posting consistently. And I mean, not everyone is like Victoria, where she has experience, understands that there's a lot of effort and time that goes into curating a social media feed. And we at Influencer, we want to solve that problem by making it easier to bridge the gap between your athletic department and the content that they're creating on your behalf anyway, and sharing that with y'all and making sure that y'all have access to your content, you're able to post. I mean, like I said, the biggest issue I've dealt with athletes, they don't post consistently enough. And I think that they're so focused on perfection instead of authenticity, and understanding that you can post an authentic image of yourself and you don't have to worry about it being perfect. It can be, the imperfections, I think, are what we humanize each other with. And we understand that not everyone is going to be perfect. And we understand that we want to see your story. We want to hear about you. We want to hear what you have to say. So I would say that getting the content to athletes is what our mission has been, and empowering them to take advantage of this. And NIL has just been such a huge opportunity that has really been something that should have been happening for a while now.
Yeah, great Great stuff, Mark. I want to come back to a couple things you said. Victoria, I think you had a comment to make there.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of piggyback off what Nico said. I think for sure athletes, the classroom and what you've promised to dedicate to your team has to be a priority. However, I will say for any of you players thinking, well, I'm not the star player. Like no matter how hard I work, I don't see myself being an All-American or earning a starting spot. So how does this affect me? And I actually think there's lots of opportunity in this, even if you're not a starter and you're not the star player. I can think of numerous athletes who have built platforms and become like the heart of the team. They vlog the team bus ride. They have the TikTok account where the starters will come in for a dance or not, or whatnot. So I do think you shouldn't be discouraged if you're not a star athlete that this couldn't benefit you, because I definitely think it does. And I think we might see a lot of backup players, second stringers using this to their advantage and utilizing the access they have to the starters and the people that, media love to see.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. I saw something, I'm trying to remember where I saw it about, student athletes that would have profited off of March Madness, last year in the women's and men's basketball tournaments. And the student athlete had if I'm correct, had the most followers, adding all of them together by a large margin, was Paige Bruckers, who's the women's player who was a freshman last year at UConn. And yeah, she's an All-American and playing for UConn. That's pretty good, but the margin wasn't even that close. Like the numbers, and Mark, you probably have the data somewhere, but the numbers were so dramatic. It was just very impressive, to the point of, you don't have to be a male, you don't have to be an All-American at Duke or North Carolina or Texas or UCLA or USC. You can be anywhere. It's who you are. And I loved, Mark, what you said about the being authentic and being yourself. And I guess, Gene, I'm going to come back to you. How would you counsel the student athletes on trying to avoid pitfalls, or trying to, I'm just chasing followers versus trying to be yourself and representing your brand building? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just think, so when the endorsements come, I think it's really important to make sure that they fit you and they fit your values, and because it's going to be a reflection of who you are. And so you don't just, like you said, chase. Don't just, well, someone's going to give me a little bit of money, but I don't believe in that, or I don't wear that, or I don't like that. I think it's going to be hard to sit back and say, no, this really has to fit me and be who I am. And then just market yourself that way. And again, the social media is pretty new to me too. But the stuff I see is amazing. I think there's some twins. I should know who they are, but down your way, I think, Victoria. And they're just amazing. Their TikTok and their social media, the following is ridiculous. So I think just be authentic. I liked it when Mark said authentic and who you are, and just make sure you follow your values.
Yeah, no, great point, Gene. So Nico, how would you counsel, let's say a couple basketball players that in our conference that you run into and they're talking, how would you counsel them on kind of managing any pitfalls, concerns? Everybody might think, oh, this is going to be great, this is going to be awesome, but maybe it's not. So how do you help them on their journey that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think people brought up authenticity, which I think is super important. But one of the things, going back to my Nike days, when we would look to sign an athlete, we're looking through their Instagram and their Twitter page. We really want to know who they are. A lot of times when you're in your, late teens, early 20s, and I did stupid stuff too, but a lot of times you actually post stupid stuff. And that's just kind of like a little bit of, lets people into your world and who you were. And maybe you're not that person now. And so I just think being very careful in terms of what you allow people to see is super important. But if you're authentic to yourself, maybe it also lets people see who you really are. And so just being mindful of that.
Yeah, no, that's really good, Nico. So Victoria, I want to tap into your mental health expertise a little bit here, because this is a generational thing, and I'm certainly the oldest one on the panel, but I don't think Nico and Gene also are as young as you. So where I'm going with this is, it seems to me that generationally, the generation that's now in college is sometimes derives their own self-worth sometimes through things like social media. And so how would you caution someone not to, drive their self-worth by their value of their name, image, and likeness, and maybe jealousy that comes up of, oh, sure, the star hitter on the volleyball team got this, or the pitcher on the softball team. And so I'm just thinking about the mental health for our student athletes, and does this help or does this hurt it? And so I got those thoughts kind of in my head. How do you respond to that?
For sure. And is it going to help or is it going to hurt? I think it can do a little bit of both. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. Something I will say though is, as athletes, we love a definitive answer. We love a win. We love the scoreboard. We love the stat. We love knowing I did it or I didn't do it. Let me work harder to get what I want next time. When it comes to life, when it comes to success, love, validation, those are things we'll never be able to quantify and win and be done with. And the reason I say that is because when we find ourselves comparing to a teammate or our friend at a different school or another conference or another team, you have to remember that life is long. We're all going to peak at different times. And there's really no way to win this experience of living, right? So someone might sign this amazing deal. That's awesome. We're all 19, 20, 21. We have so many more years of life to live. Maybe you're going to go on to graduate and have a job that brings you so much purpose. And then at 35 or 40, you're going to feel like you're peaking and that person's not. So what I'm just saying is, when you catch yourself going into that mindset of like, I got to be the best, I got to win, just remind yourself that life isn't really something you can win. It's something you experience, and we're all going to peak and we're all going to fall at different times.
Really good advice, Victoria. Yep. So, Jean, when you hear Victoria talk about kind of managing the mental health, what are you thinking about there?
Boy, we just, times have changed. They've changed so much. That wasn't even an issue, not an issue. I'm sorry. It was never brought up back then. And I think it's great. I think the athletes coming out and people like Victoria coming out and helping those athletes that have it, that have issues and struggle through it, is just awesome to be able to verbalize it and talk about it and normalize it, because it is normal. Everybody has it. So, but just nothing, we didn't have those, that help. We didn't have access to any of that way back when. I'm glad to hear you say you're older than me though. I already determined that Nico's not.
No, he's not. So that's okay. So I'm looking, so it's 23 after. So we're gonna continue this till about 40 after, and then we're gonna do a 20-minute kind of Q&A with everybody that's live on this. So I want to spin a little bit to Mark. And Mark, here's what I'd love for you to do. I'd love for you to kind of walk all of us through. Okay, we're brand new student athletes. Pick a school in the Big Sky. We signed influencer. I have no idea what that means. What's going to happen? What do I do? How's this going to work? Kind of, if you could take us soup to nuts through that for a few minutes, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Okay. So Influencer is an app on your phone. Your athletic departments will be reaching out and setting up meetings to get you onboarded. You'll download the app, we'll get you a login. And what that app does is it curates content specifically to each athlete. So we have facial recognition, jersey recognition, metadata recognition. What our software does is it takes photos that the department is already taking, runs it through our recognition system and software, distributes them to each individual athlete. So you'll get curated content directly to your phone and in your app. In addition to that, we also wanted to make sure that we were providing resources for NIL activity as well. So what we've done is we've reached out to partners, or they've reached out to us, program or apps like Cameo, Mojo, CoachUp, all these different opportunities that are now available to you because of NIL. And we brought them into our ecosystem and made it so that it's easy for y'all to get those activities reported to your compliance offices quickly and effectively. So if you sign up for Cameo through our app, what it'll do is every time that you go onto Cameo and fulfill a request, it'll automatically report that to your compliance office, which is part of each NIL bill so far is required there to be some type of reporting or disclosure. So we want to make that as easy as possible because we understand that there are so many new other things that you're having to balance. As Nico mentioned, you have school, you have your sport, you have all of the different things that you're doing. We want to make it easier for you to report that transaction, get that into the system, get your compliance folks able to see and view that, make sure everything's on the up and up, and make that a seamless process. So in addition to the content distribution, we have some NIL opportunity and reporting. We also will provide or we'll use some of your analytics from Twitter, Instagram, all these different parties, put all your analytics together so you can kind of see how your positive social media habits will affect your brand, and we'll be able to pull all that information into the app. It shares it with me so that I can help y'all too and give you some advice on ways to improve. So it's really a great app for all of the different things, and it was almost made for NIL. So I'm really excited to be partnering with all of y'all, and you'll look to your athletic department. We'll be launching very soon.
All right, great stuff. You're the first person to say y'all, so that's how we know you're down south. Mark,
I
that.
am. I actually grew up in New Hampshire, so this was an acquired thing.
Oh, so you've learned y'all. Okay, gotcha.
When
Pretty soon Nico will be
social.
Saying that, living in Dallas here soon. So that's great. So one of the things you mentioned about photos, and I'm going to ask this question because I want to make sure I heard it correctly from other people that we've talked to about this is. So let's say Nico's playing for the Bobcats. He's playing at Gene's old school at the Grizz, and somebody from Montana is taking photos of the game. So the person will load those photos up, and those photos that Nico appears in from Missoula at Montana would then appear on his phone, even though they were taken at a different school. Am I understanding that correctly? Mark?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was answering one of the questions in the chat.
Okay. So I'm talking about, sir, come on, pay attention, Mark. Come on. So Nico plays at Montana State. He's playing at Montana. Photos taken of the game. They recognize his face, his jersey number. Those photos get sent to him.
Yep. So as they're uploaded into our system, they're quickly ID'd, tagged, and distributed to all of the athletes in record time. It makes it really, really simple. They can just upload a gallery directly to our platform, and then that will share all of those photos directly with the athlete that they're being tagged in, or directly with the athlete that's being tagged in that photo. And it'll also appear as a gallery section. So say, you want a team photo or a team celebration. Maybe you aren't necessarily in it, but you want to celebrate with your team and post some great content. There will be a gallery of all of the photos also available.
Great. Okay, Victoria, you hear that? What do you do with it then? You're on mute. There we go.
Sorry, will you repeat the question?
So you heard what Mark said. You get those photos. You just got done with your volleyball game at UCLA. You hop on the bus, you load up your phone, and there's all those pictures. What are you going to do with them?
Post those. And when it comes to content, you guys, this is probably the only area in life where an athlete will say to an athlete, quantity over quality. I know, like when we're lifting, right, it's quality over quantity. You want the form right, you want to be mentally focused. But when it comes to content, the more the merrier. Just put content out there. You never know what's going to hit. The only way to find out what interests people who are watching your page is by trial and error, by putting things out there, seeing what hits, seeing what interests them. Especially when it comes to something like TikTok. I mean, that's a platform where you could post multiple times a day. You don't have to worry about everything being perfect and everything going great. So I would say when it comes to content, quantity over quality, experiment, play around. And the last thing I'll say too is I think personally, this is my opinion, I think an overrated piece of advice for content creators is to find a niche. Like find your thing, hammer it home, stick to it if it works. I believe people are so multifaceted. I think there's a million things you can talk about, you can share. If you pigeonhole yourself into a corner where you're like, I only post about pineapples, and if I ever post about a trip with my family, it doesn't get likes, no one cares, you're really, digging yourself a hole. I kind of did that in the beginning. I was all USC volleyball, USC volleyball, USC volleyball. I graduated. I wasn't on the team anymore. No one was watching my videos. No one cared about what I posted. I had to pivot. And now I've since been able to expand my message to talk about a lot of different things, which is so much more fulfilling to me. So post a lot, and don't feel this need to do one thing. Be yourself, and you probably love a lot of things. That's great.
No, that's great. Great advice, Victoria. Appreciate that. So, Jean, how would you counsel athletes that you're working with on how to navigate this?
So I come at it a completely different angle. So when I think the reason I'm here is as the agent, and when so now basically you guys are endorsement wise like a professional athlete. You can get paid for your name, your image, your likeness. So I think that it's really important. And when you're talking about posting those pictures and using those pictures, you have to take a little turn and say, if I'm endorsing somebody, I can't do it in that uniform. I can't do it wearing my Grizzly stuff. I can't, my Bobcat stuff can't be part of my endorsement. So I would like to tell them, the people listening, in getting an agent, what you should look for, if that's okay. I think that I've already heard tons of people coming out of the woodwork trying to profit out of this now. And I think just really look for someone that's experienced and that has learned the NIL stuff. And if you get an agent as a collegiate athlete, they can only do NIL. It's not like they can be working in other ways for you. They can't be trying to get you an MBA spot or trying to get you overseas or any of that while you're still eligible, just the NIL stuff. So really someone that knows what they're doing, that's been doing it for a while. I would really go off of reputation and trust. Accessibility is super important, knowing you can get a hold of your person when you need to, that they're going to be there through the whole process. I think those things are important. As far as fees, there's a couple different models that athletes pay in the professional world. There's a 10/20, and that's a model that if something comes to your door, the agent gets 10. If they go find it, it's 20. Some people do 15 across the board. Also, it's very negotiable. So just know that you can negotiate that. There's going to be some big deals. There's going to be some really small deals. There's going to be some that are just, maybe product or food, or maybe you get to drive a car. But then the thing to really be careful with all of that is come April 15th, you're going to have to pay taxes on all that stuff that you got. So I just think having a professional in your corner that can really help you through all that is really important. And knowing that your coaches really can't do that. The school really is not supposed to do that for you.
Yeah, great advice, Jean. We're gonna come back to some of that stuff in a little bit. Nico, I want you to put your Nike hat back on for a minute. Pretend you're in charge of marketing for a business, local businesses, and how would you evaluate whether you wanted to sponsor or find a couple of student athletes that you want to endorse and promote your product? What are you looking for? How do you evaluate your needs as a business, controlling those dollars and where they go?
Well, first thing I'm going to look at, what's the return on my investment? If I give a student athlete $1, $2, what am I going to get in return? And so what type of person are they? What type of reach do they have, kind of to Victoria's, in terms of like their social media following? Like, what's their reach? Am I going to be able to benefit off of it? Most businesses are going to spend money on marketing. So it's just where they spend it at. And so the people with the most reach, the people that are going to help bring dollars back in, that's where I'm going to spend my dollars.
Yeah, good advice. So Mark, so far in your experience, how has influencer helped the student athletes and soon to help the Big Sky kind of navigate those issues?
We're just trying to get athletes to think more critically about how and what they're posting, and understanding that it's kind of like, it's like working out in the weight room. Posting once a month isn't going to make you, isn't going to give you a ton of followers, just like working out once a month isn't going to make you stronger. So understanding that there is a level of work that needs to be put into it, but also articulating that you can develop strong social media habits easily and quickly just by learning and understanding and adapting and making a plan. So I would say the areas that we help, we want to make sure that they get the content. That's important. A lot of athletes are worried about how they're going to get content and not understanding that they are also content creators. So they can find different ways to create and look for content in their everyday lives. Victoria gave a ton of great examples of things that athletes can do. Think about all of the different situations that y'all have a monopoly on, whether that be like team meals, travel days, all of the different pieces of content or the different things that you may take for granted, thinking that you're going through it every single day, but your followers don't see any of that. And I was not a student athlete, so I never got to experience any of that. As a, working in athletic department and being on the travel party then, it's a little different now, but I'm, 31 years old now. So think about all the different things that your fans, followers, and folks want to see. And that's mostly what we were trying to fill that void. We want them to get the content. We want them to look at for content and make sure that they're showcasing themselves in the best way possible and taking advantage of all these opportunities.
Tom, can I add something to what Mark said?
Of course.
So I love everything he just said. And to give a concrete example, I turned one tweet today into 4 pieces of content. I tweeted something about Simone Biles. I took a picture of that. I posted the picture of the tweet to my Instagram feed. That's 2. I did a story talking about the tweet, expanding on it. That's 3. And then I pulled my story and posted it as a TikTok. So one tweet has now given me 4 pieces of content across multiple platforms. So just also think about that and how you can expand one sentence, one photo, one tweet, one idea, and streamline it across multiple platforms.
And listen to how she posted in different ways, not just putting the same exact thing. She differentiated between platforms. She created new ways and utilized each platform to the best of their advantage, understanding that TikTok is different than an Instagram post and that Twitter is a different avenue. She took all of that content and made it appropriate for each platform.
Yeah, really good. I'm still stuck on pineapple for some reason, Victoria. I don't know how you were headed down a path and how you grabbed pineapple out of the air was really impressive.
I used to have a pineapple candle right here on my desk, so I think it just came back to me.
Funny how that works. So Mark, a question I wanted to ask you about kind of the process piece. So will student athletes get access to their influencer account through the school, or do they do that on their own? How will that kind of get launched?
So schools we will launch y'all within your athletic department. What we want to do is work with each department and make sure that we are taking any content that they have from previous seasons, any photos from recent years, making sure that we can put some content in there ahead of time and getting the accounts up and running and making sure that the builds are correct. So we will send y'all invites to download the app and then give you login information. So stay tuned. We'll work with your athletic department to make sure that we expedite the process as much as we can. So just hang on, we will get you access. Our goal is to get everyone on before the start of the season.
Is the monetary piece, is that tracked as part of the app as well, Mark?
It absolutely is. As long as you are either going through influencer, the compliance exchange apps, like if you go through influencer to set up your accounts, it'll report back automatically. There are also 2 functions that we have in there for all of the apps we aren't working with, or all of the different businesses and folks we aren't working with. We have a self-reporting feature, which you'll be able to fill out all the information in there. There's also a share my link. So if you are working with an agent, you can just share that link with them and they'll be able to send that to anyone who would want to do a deal with you.
So Gene brought up a good point about the business aspect of this, right? I mean, so there are tax implications for individuals. And so it sounds to me like influencer can be helpful on that path. I assume does influencer have anything to do with the tax piece of this, or how does that work?
The tax part's difficult because we can't create one all-encompassing. We're not tracking, we're managing the transactions so that they can be reported to the institution, but we're not actually, none of the money is touching our accounts. It's done with the business or with the person themselves. So we can't give any tax information. But I mean, if you go through and you can see all of the different places that you've worked with, we're working on that to make it a little bit easier for folks, but we don't manage any of the tax information currently.
Yeah, okay, good. So Gene, what advice do you give the student athletes then? You mentioned a little bit about the agent piece. My guess is, I'm purely guessing here, most of our student athletes wouldn't have an agent. So what advice do you give them to handle that piece?
Did you say would or would not?
Would not. I think most would not have an agent.
Right. At this point, I guess before July 1st, they better not. But yeah, it's just, again, it sounds like with this panel, the teamwork is going to be key, right? If we can all work together to help these athletes, that sounds like the best scenario. A few things I didn't point out: if you do sign an agent, don't ever sign a multi-year deal with an agent, and make sure there's not a fine in there if you try to get out of your contract. A lot of them try to get an outrageous amount of money from you, which is just ridiculous. Just a few things to be careful with. But yeah, I think just, probably it's pretty confusing for an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid to all of a sudden be involved in something that they never have, and none of us have. So I think just any outside help you can get. And, in my business, I have access to attorneys and access to accountants and tax planners, all of that. But it seems like most of my athletes use who mom and dad use as far as most of that goes. So, reach out to them too. And obviously do what's best for you. But I think that professionals are going to help the process a lot.
Yeah.
Tom, sorry, can I add something else?
Go right ahead. Yeah.
Everything she said was amazing. Want one extra second not to sign any multi-year contracts. You don't know where you'll be in a year. You could blow up and be worth 3 times what you signed. So never sign something you can't get out of. And then secondly, 2 basic things I wish I knew when I was building my brand at school. Start an email account that's not affiliated with your university. Go to gmail.com, victoriagarrick@gmail.com. If you're going to do a YouTube channel, that should be the email you set up your YouTube channel through. If you're going to email with a brand, do it through that email. I did a lot of things through my @usc.edu account. I graduate, I lose that account. I had to spend weeks switching my socials over. So just start a clean slate with an unaffiliated email account, and then just keep tabs. If there's a contract or there's communications or you get a payment, just write it down, stay organized, so that if you do meet with an accountant or someone to help you with finances, you're like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I put it all in one place. That will help tremendously when you need to take that step.
Yeah. No, great point there. So, all right. So we're at 42. We're going to start trying to get through some of these questions here. Some we could probably answer. I see a couple on here I don't think we want to get into trying to guess. For example, there was a compliance question here at some point about, is there a limit on how much a student athlete can earn before it affects his or her scholarship status? I think that's a compliance issue there. I believe the answer is no, but again, you have to remember, if you're on need-based scholarships and you get income, that's going to count towards your next year's financial aid amount. So there is a trickle effect there that could impact your scholarship. That's a great question for your compliance people there. So I see a question on here, Gene, about if I post photos of my team on social media, do I need to get their permission to use their image now? What are your thoughts on that?
Of the teammates?
Yes.
Probably, right? I mean, that's a whole new, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I mean, because now it's their name, image, and likeness as well. So.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's new territory there for all of us.
Right?
Eric, Mark, have you guys addressed any of that at all? Kind of the sharing of multiple student athletes?
Well, in uploading content to our platform, it is permissible to use for editorial purposes. So when departments are essentially granting permission to the athletes to use this content editorially, meaning that they can't use that in a post that they get compensated for. It is generally great practice to ask permission if you're featuring athletes or you're featuring people that aren't you. But that's just an easy conversation with your teammates or those that you're posting. I think that you can just ask, hey, is it okay if I post this picture of you? And if it's a picture of you, you have permission to use it based on the department uploading it to the platform.
Nico, how would you advise like coaches? Okay, you're talking to coaches now about trying to manage this within their roster, and we're trying to advise the student athletes, work with them, make sure there's no conflicts. What are your thoughts on that?
I think for coaches, just be advised on the rules and make sure that you know what's going on with your team. You know, I think it's really important that you know, as a coach, you got to be in the know of what's going on, and so just making sure that you're familiar with what's going on with each individual in terms of the name, image, and likeness, and stay on top of the rules so that you can actually help guide them and educate them so that they don't fall in, you know, any sort of pitfalls or, you know, violate the rules.
Yeah, I mean, Victoria, as a student athlete, what are your thoughts on in the locker room amongst student athletes and dealing with some of the, you know, potential conflicts or jealousy, or how do you navigate that around the locker room?
Well, I think you have to definitely, you want to be a good teammate, first of all. So you want to communicate with your team about what they're comfortable with. I was vlogging during my time at SC, and our star players weren't interested. They didn't want to be on the vlog. I also have to respect that when they're on the bus ride headed to the game, it's distracting for me to be doing what I'm doing. So I would stick to the girls who did want to participate. I wouldn't pressure or distract or involve my teammates who didn't. You know, I always had comments like, "Where is Sarah? Why isn't she in the vlog?" And I'm thinking, because she didn't want to be in it. So I think you have to respect your team. And then as a result, they will respect you because you are keeping to yourself. So I had to strike a balance. It was possible. Definitely respect the boundaries of your teammates, the privacy of the locker room, and all that stuff. And if you're not sure, ask.
Yeah, and I would think that you know, the coaches that are more in tune with what's happening social media wise, that are, you know, they're going to have an advantage. They're going to have an advantage working with their team and getting the trust and buy-in of their team. They're going to have an advantage in recruiting if they're in touch with the opportunities out there for the student athletes. And so, you know, certainly, you know, the coaches that embrace this, I think ultimately could have an advantage. Does that sound right to you, Victoria?
Yeah, that definitely, sorry, I was reading one of the questions and I don't want to
That's
say
all right.
something wrong. Would you repeat the end of it?
I was just thinking about coaches have an advantage if they're more savvy in the social media realm and the relationship with their student athletes because of that.
Yeah, I think I actually was thinking about that earlier because I previously knew some coaches who wouldn't even allow their players to have a public Instagram account. And I can see that being very, you know, muddy water at this point in time, because if a coach is like, "Hey, it's our team rule," and an athlete's like, "Well, this is extremely limiting for me," you know, it's tough. So I think as long as it's not distracting from the team trying to win and do what they set out to do that season, it should be okay. But that's a conversation between each coach and their player. You know, that was always something that I had to do, was make sure I wasn't going to rock waters or affect the team's performance, because that comes first. So I think coaches and players should have open dialogue about that and what is appropriate.
Mark, what kind of educational tools does Influencer have to help guide the student athletes on this journey?
I am glad you asked, Tom, because I have neglected to mention the Storyteller Playbook, which is featured within our app. It is a group of former student athletes and former pros. We have Renee Montgomery in there. She's won 2 NCAA championships and one WNBA, is now part owner of a team. She's giving advice based on her experience on how to tackle this. We have Todd Gurley, Ronnie 2K is in there. Like we have so many different former athletes, influencers, people who understand this space that are giving their expertise. They're talking about different things that they've done. Things such as, does my character matter? It's not just the how much money can I make, or if I'm a role player and I'm not the star, can I still have opportunities? Things that Victoria's talked about. So we have so many different videos and opportunities in there. We do have tax information in there provided by some of our partners at Team Ultimus and Anomaly. So we have a lot of different pieces of content in there, all under 5 minutes. We want to make sure it was sort of like the YouTube structure where you don't know how to do something, so you go and search how to do it. We wanted to provide all of that within the same app that you're using to get your content, your stats, your opportunities.
Yeah, great. I remember hearing about that. So, I like anything in life, right? You get out of it what you put into it. So if the student athletes will spend some time in that Storyteller, is that what you call it?
Storyteller Playbook, yes.
Storyteller Playbook. Sounds like there's some great resources there. So, all right. So another question I see on here. So Nico, I'm going to come to you with this. How will professional organizations, businesses, employers, how would they view student athletes who monetize their name, image, and likeness? What are your thoughts there?
I don't think they'll have an opinion. I do think that as a student athlete, you should endorse brands that you actually believe in, and so that you won't be embarrassed by. And I think brands are going to look for athletes that they're not going to be embarrassed by. Athletes are not going to be in the bars fighting or be in the newspaper for doing, silly things. So I don't think that employers will have any issue at all.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Jean?
Now I'm guilty. I was reading how pro teams will look at that.
Just not pro teams. I'm thinking it's more like, I go find a job after college. And so does this help me? Does it hurt me? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think I don't see it'll hurt at all. I think it will help, and they'll know you're a go-getter and that you're out, making your name better, learning the business early on. I don't think there's any damage that can do whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay, good. Mark, I see a question on here. Should I wait for these opportunities to come to me? Should I chase them? Can influencer help me with that? Am I on my own? How's that play into this?
I think that there's a good combination of putting in some extra effort and making sure that you're positioning yourself now to be ready for the deals that are going to come to you. But I mean, like anything, you're going to put some work into it on the front end, and you're going to want to make sure that you are positioning yourself for these opportunities. You're doing your research, you're understanding what you stand for, what you want your brand to be representative of, and what types of brands you're looking to attract. So if there's certain brands out there, make sure that you're doing that outreach. You're saying, hey, Lululemon, I love Lululemon. If they wanted to sponsor me, I'd be all for it. But maybe they don't know that I'm passionate about it yet. Maybe they don't know that I have a social media following and want to be able to leverage that and work with them. So I think that putting in a little effort on the front end, as well as looking at your opportunities inside the app and understanding that there will be different marketplaces, different coaching opportunities, different like Cameo. There's so many different ways that you can monetize this. So combination of both, I would say. Be proactive and also be ready and position yourself for when brands want to reach out to you too.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. Victoria, do you have a thought there?
Yeah. So obviously, I think something that this comes down to is growth. How do I get followers? How do I have an audience that will buy things from me, right? Something Nico said was, if we're going to put $1 into you, we want $1 or more back. So how can you guarantee that for a brand? And I really think that the best, most optimal way to grow right now is on TikTok. And I know some people might roll their eyes and think, oh, TikTok, that's gonna burn out. It hasn't. It's been 2 years. In just 1 year, I've been able to grow close to 1 million followers on that app, which has exponentially improved my other platforms. And the reason why TikTok is superior is because the algorithm has the most probability to make your content viral. When you post on Snapchat, Instagram, or Twitter, your content goes to people who have already subscribed and follow you. When you post on TikTok, of course, someone can retweet it or post it to their story, but for the most part, it's your followers. When you post on TikTok, that video has the potential to appear on Obama's feed if he has a TikTok. That TikTok can go anywhere. And then if that TikTok is seen by 100,000 people, that's 100,000 eyes that might follow you. Check your Instagram, check your Twitter. So if you're wondering where to start, my advice, and panelists, if you disagree, that's totally fine. Please share your opinions as well. But I would say get on TikTok. And if you don't know what to do, get on the app tonight, just scroll through it, look up hashtag college athletes. There's so many. Sedona, the Oregon basketball player, is a fantastic example. No social media presence. And then she posted a viral video of the Women's March Madness weight room, which I'm sure we've all seen. And that went viral. She's now at like 2 million TikTok followers, so many Instagram followers. So I can't say it enough, TikTok. And if you don't know how, just consume the content and I promise you'll figure it out.
I have to echo that because TikTok, it is such an it's an easier way to build an audience, and they are so great about sharing to other platforms. They are the best in social media when it comes to sharing the love on other platforms. I mean, they actively put your Instagram on there. You can link out to other platforms. It's just unheard of in the social space right now. So they are definitely an industry disruptor, and I'm so happy they're here.
Yeah,
That's great.
one TikTok can be posted as one IG reel and vice versa. So every time you post a TikTok or a reel, you have 2 pieces of content on 2 platforms.
Cool. All right. One of the things that's popped up in a few different areas here is international students. Mark is influencer. Have any results or any platform pieces that are for international students and how that works? Does that come up?
So it's based on visa status. So you want to make sure that, and this isn't exclusive to NIL, it's also if an international athlete tries to get a job, you got to make sure that what you're doing is within the visa limits and you're making sure that your visa is okay. So it's not so much about NIL so much as it's your visa status and what type of visa you're here on.
But Mark, most visas don't allow that. So for
Correct.
student, they can't participate in this. However, there's nothing stopping you to go to your home country and you use it there, get any kind of endorsement you can wherever you're from.
Yeah. Good advice there, Gene. One of the questions has come up, what if you don't have a big social media following? And I was thinking about, and I can't remember what school it was now, the offensive line on the football team did a deal with a local beef company. And so they're getting like beef jerky and steak and other things. So they're not actually getting dollars. They're doing it for trade. And so I don't even think it's driven. I think you have to wear the t-shirt like 1 day a week or something like that. That's the trade-off. And so it's not even really driven by social media, but, kind of thinking in those realms. We've talked a lot about growing social media. So what advice do any of the panelists have for things outside of social media? So Nico, you want to start with that one?
I just think be creative. The NIL is such a great opportunity for student athletes. It shouldn't be overwhelming. It should be, if you want to participate, great, be creative, come up with some original things that nobody else has thought of, and just enjoy it. And if it works out for you, great. And let's be real. There's several thousand athletes in the Big Sky. Not everybody's going to get one. So come up with a creative idea or an angle and go for it and just enjoy it.
Yeah, great. Gene, your turn.
Yeah, I think, what I always try to think about when I look for endorsements for my athletes is I have them give me a list of what do you use on a daily basis? What do you love? Where are your passions? What do you eat? What do you, hair products, just anything. And then, get somebody to go and ask them, see what you can create, or do a camp, or do an autograph signing, or, any of that stuff. Again, when you do that, you can't wear your school's logos. You can't be affiliated, but that's not a big deal. And one more point, just even with the beef jerky, or with anything that you get in trade, any goods or services that you're getting, just remember that you're going to get taxed on that. So I just don't want these kids to have April 15th come up and go, oh my gosh, I don't have any cash. But you've got to, and there's brackets. I think you have to make up to, what is it? It's only 10% if you make up to 10,000, but then if you make 41 to 86, it's 22%. So if someone gives you a $50,000 car, you got to come up with 11 grand on April 15th. So just things to be aware of. But just be creative. Just think about the things you use, the things you like, and go down and beat down doors or hire somebody to do that for you.
Also think about the other things that you can do. If you're a musician, you can sell your music now. If you are a carpenter, you can make coffee tables. If you can pour resin, I want to buy one. So think of all the different things that you can now do, because prior everyone was all worried about the pay for play part of it. But if you're handy, if you're crafty, if there are things that you can do outside of sport, do them. Be an entrepreneur, build something, create something, develop something.
And I think just another key, make sure, and we've already said this, but you're reporting everything to your school. And it also, you can't, I know back in the day, they used to pay players to sit and watch sprinklers turn on. I mean, it's got to be fair market value for a service you're actually giving. So just a few things to keep in mind, but just make sure you're reporting everything to your school.
Okay. There's some multiple kind of follow-up questions in that international space I see here about if you have maybe Gene, if you have dual citizenship and you sign with a brand outside the US, do you have to pay US taxes on that?
When a player plays overseas, it all depends on if that company or that team is paying taxes for you. So when I send a player overseas, say if they're playing in Germany, that actual team is paying the tax that player for whatever they made. They pay that portion of tax. So let's say it was 30%, that player comes home and they're in a 35% bracket, they owe 5%. So I don't know, in an endorsement type deal, if you would just negotiate it as tax-free is how you would want to do that. And then also I think it's like 80,000 that you have to make overseas before you even have to pay anything here. And that number may have changed, but it's somewhere around that.
Gotcha. Okay. One of the things that I saw somewhere here on the Q&A that we've talked about quite a bit in kind of, from an administrative capacity is sponsors that come in conflict with university sponsors. It could be something as plain sight, like, we're a Nike school, but I like Adidas. But it also could be, there's a car dealership that gives 8 cars to the university for its head coaches, and it's the Ford dealership, and I want to do something with Chevrolet. And so how are athletic departments going to manage that around, kind of those touchy areas there? So Mark, have you seen examples of that, or has there been kind of discussion, in the space from an influencer standpoint on that topic?
Well, part of the reason why they limit logo use is for those exact reasons. If the university is in partnership with a brand and has permission to use that logo, you definitely don't want an athlete making a deal with a competitor using their IP or their colors or their logo. But when it comes to the athlete's opportunities, I would make sure that you are reading into your school's NIL policy. I would also make sure that you are aware of your state law, if there is one, because departments are supposed to disclose a list of companies that they are working with, and you just want to make sure that you are aware and listen in reporting everything as we mentioned. But when it comes to making deals, you have the opportunity to go out and make deals with brands. Now, you can't put your university in a situation where their partnership is at risk with someone else, but that's why there are rules in place, and that's why there are state regulations out there. You should have a lot of opportunity, and just make sure that when you are taking advantage of these opportunities, you're listening to the rules and you're aware of what the different laws and NIL policies are.
Yeah, I think you hit on a good point there, Mark. So each university in the Big Sky has created its own NIL policy, and those should be either done or near completion. So please work with your compliance office, find out what those are, make sure you fully understand them before you head out, and you don't want to get yourself or the university in a bad situation. So, all right, so we're just about out of time. I'm gonna go around the horn for some final thoughts as we wrap up. So Nico, I'm going to start with you first. Final thoughts here and advice to our student athletes that are listening in.
NIL, it's an amazing opportunity. I'm glad that they actually have this opportunity. Enjoy it. Don't stress over it. Look for some unique opportunities to benefit from it, and just go from there.
Okay, great advice. Gene, you're up.
Just to piggyback quickly off what you can and can't do, I'm sure that no student athlete would ever want to market alcohol or but no alcohol, no drugs, no firearms, no geez, the list goes on, but just obvious things. And as far as NIL goes, just I think remember why you're there first. Remember that you're a student first and athlete second. Is that how I'm supposed to say it? And that's, that's why you're there. And now take advantage of these new rules of the NIL, but just keep your priorities straight, and the NIL opportunities will follow.
Great. Okay, Victoria, final thoughts.
Final thoughts, I'll just, in terms of building a brand for those eager and hungry to take advantage, I'd say quantity over quality. Just start posting, start seeing what hits, get on TikTok, and keep your message wide. Explore things, ask your audience what they want to see from you, experiment, and just have fun with it.
Great advice. Thank you. Mark, what are your final thoughts here?
I would just echo Victoria and say focus on authenticity. Be you. Don't try and be a persona that you think that you need to be on social media. Build your audience authentically, and they will reward you in the long run for it.
Okay, that's wonderful advice. So just to tie this all together, first of all, I want to say thank you to our panelists. You guys have been awesome. You're rock stars, and all of your thoughts are so meaningful for what we've done. We've had a task force, a name, image, and likeness task force that's been working for months. And we have some people that I want to say thank you to, certainly to Eric Sprunk, who's a former Montana graduate, worked at Nike for a long time. He was a key part of this. Kim Davis, who you see her face on here from Eastern Washington, was a huge part of what we were doing. And then we had student athletes as a part of it. And Haley Pelton is a volleyball player at University of Idaho. She did a wonderful job representing the student athletes as part of this panel and task force that met for months, trying to help navigate this and brought us to influencer. That was certainly a key part of this as well. And so we look forward to seeing what the future looks like. So on behalf of the Big Sky Conference, thank you all for being a part of this. God bless you all. Let's have some fun. And I guess I better go make a TikTok video or something like that, according to Victoria. So we'll have some fun with that. Yeah, I bet you would. So some funny dance or something. So thank you very much. Everybody have a great evening.